If the entire world you live in is nothing more than a mirror reflecting your inner focus, then what image are you giving it to reflect back to you? Pause for a moment. What thoughts filled your mind this morning? What feelings lingered in your heart before you even left your bed? For you attract what you focus on, not what you wish for, not what you beg for, but what you assume to be already true. Your world, every scene and every face, is but the out-pictured result of your dominant attention. When you understand the law of assumption, you see that your attention is not passive. It is creative. To focus on something is to give it life, to breathe reality into it. If you constantly dwell on lack, you cannot help but create more of it. If you focus on abundance, opportunity, and joy, those conditions will form themselves in your outer world. The mind is the soil, your assumptions are the seeds. Whether you plant weeds or roses is entirely up to you. Your imagination creates reality, and to live in the end is to act and feel as though your desire is already fulfilled. This is not daydreaming. It is the deliberate act of clothing an idea in the rich garment of belief. It is the difference between merely wishing for change and creating it. The power of focus lies not in desperate repetition, but in the assumed knowing that what you inwardly claim will outwardly appear. You attract what you focus on. This truth is so simple that many overlook its depth. The mind is not a passive receiver of the world. It is the projector, casting upon the screen of life the exact pattern it holds in consciousness. What you hold steadily before your attention becomes the seed from which your experiences grow. Every thought is a seed. Every feeling is the invisible blueprint of tomorrow. If your focus is scattered, your results will be scattered. If your focus is firm, unwavering, and impregnated with feeling, your results will reflect that same intensity. To focus is to choose, and choice is the very power that shapes reality. You may believe the events of life are random, but if you trace them back to the origin, you will find them rooted in states of mind you have dwelt in persistently. There is no harvest without a planting season, and there is no manifestation without a period of mental focus. The outer world is the slow crystallization of what you have inwardly accepted as true. Consider this: when you give your attention to something, you are breathing life into it. Attention is energy, and energy follows thought. Focus is the magnet that draws the unseen into the seen. You cannot focus on lack and expect abundance to appear, just as you cannot plant thorns and expect roses. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. This is not an abstract philosophy. It is a law of being. It operates with mathematical certainty, regardless of whether you acknowledge it. When you understand that you are always focusing on something, you realize that you are always creating. The question is not whether you are using the power of focus, but whether you are using it deliberately. Most people allow their focus to be hijacked by appearances, letting the outer world dictate their inner state. They see conditions they dislike and feed them with more attention, not realizing they are watering the very weeds they wish to remove. To live consciously is to reverse this habit, to take the inner position first, to focus on what you choose to see expressed, regardless of what now appears. Focus must be more than mental repetition. It must be accompanied by the feeling that the thing focused upon is already a reality. Feeling is the power that welds the thought to your consciousness, making it part of you. When you feel a thing to be true, you are claiming it. And what you claim inwardly will, in time, be claimed outwardly by the world around you. This is why the same external effort produces different results for different people. The inner focus, the inner claim is not the same. The act of sustained focus changes you. It is not merely about bringing something into your life. It is about transforming the one who experiences life. By persistently dwelling on an idea, you begin to identify with it, to think from it rather than of it. This shift is the secret bridge between desire and manifestation. The world does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are focused upon being. Your identity is shaped by the images you entertain and the states you visit most often. Visit them long enough, and they become home. To attract what you focus on is to accept full responsibility for your inner attention. No circumstance, no person, no event has the authority to shift your focus unless you allow it. When you claim this sovereignty, you become the ruler of your world. The outer may still attempt to sway you, but you will not be moved, for you understand the source of all change is within. By keeping your attention aligned with the reality you choose, you compel the outer to reorganize itself in harmony with that choice. This is not about force. You do not wrestle with conditions or struggle to make them yield. True focus is calm, confident, and unwavering. It is the quiet knowing that the seed is already planted and will, in its appointed time, bear fruit. You do not dig up the seed each day to check if it is growing. You water it with attention, feed it with feeling, and protect it from the weeds of doubt. This is the discipline of focus. Not allowing the passing shadows of the senses to convince you the work is not being done. In the silence of your mind, hold the image of the desired state. See it, feel it, live in it. Let it be more real to you than the evidence of your eyes. This is the art of focus. And as surely as night follows day, the outer world will take the shape of that inner pattern. For you cannot hold an image, saturate it with feeling, and persist in it without attracting its likeness into your experience. Life is a faithful servant, ever eager to reflect the focus of its master. The only question that remains is, what will you choose to focus on today? For that choice will write the story of your tomorrow. The law of assumption operates through your dominant inner state. Whether you are aware of it or not, you are constantly assuming something to be true about yourself, about others, about life itself. These assumptions are not idle. They are the framework upon which your reality is built. Every moment, your inner state is giving birth to outer forms. The law does not take orders from fleeting wishes or momentary thoughts. It responds to the state you return to again and again. The inner climate you dwell in as your home. Your dominant state is like the tide. It shapes the entire shoreline of your life. If the state is one of limitation, lack, or fear, the law will faithfully reflect those qualities in the conditions you meet. If the state is one of abundance, confidence, and fulfillment, the law will just as faithfully bring those conditions into view. It has no preference, no moral judgment. It is simply a mirror, endlessly reflecting the content of consciousness back to its source. Many wonder why a desire remains unfulfilled, even though they think about it often. The answer lies in the fact that their dominant state contradicts the desire. They may imagine a certain result for a few moments, but then return to an inner atmosphere of doubt, impatience, or fear. The law of assumption does not create from scattered impressions. It creates from the consistent vibration of the state you inhabit most. Your life is not shaped by what you occasionally think, but by what you consistently accept as true. This is why awareness of your inner state is essential. You cannot change what you are unaware of. Each day, notice where your mind rests when it is not deliberately engaged. Does it fall into worry, into complaint, into anticipation of failure? Or does it naturally drift toward confidence, gratitude, and expectation of good? This drift reveals your dominant state. If it is not aligned with the life you wish to live, then the work is to assume the feeling of the state desired and persist in it until it becomes second nature. Assumption is more than thought. It is identification. To assume something is to make it part of your identity, to claim it as, I am. When you say, I am healthy, from a place of truth, you are not merely repeating words, you are inhabiting the state of health. When you say, I am wealthy, and feel the ease, the confidence, the gratitude that comes with it. You are shifting your inner state to match that reality. The law, which responds only to the state, will then draw to you the outer symbols of that inner claim. It is not a matter of forcing the outer world to change. The outer world is powerless except to echo the inner. Attempting to change effects without changing the cause is like painting over cracks in a wall without repairing the foundation. The cracks will return because the underlying structure remains the same. Alter the inner state, the foundation, and the outer must follow. The law of assumption makes no exceptions. Persistence is the key. The dominant state is not built in a single moment, but through repetition. Each time you choose to feel from the place of your wish fulfilled, you are strengthening that state. Each time you turn away from appearances that contradict your desire and return inward to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are feeding the new state. Over time, it becomes your natural home, and when that happens, manifestation is inevitable. The outer world has no choice but to conform. This is why the discipline of inner attention is so vital. The mind will often try to revert to its old home, its familiar state, because that is what feels safe to it. But safety in the old state means safety in the old results. To create new results, you must be willing to dwell in a new state until it feels as natural as the old one once did. That is the path of transformation. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot dwell in the state of lack and expect the fruits of abundance. The state you serve with your attention will govern your life. Your inner state is the cause. The outer world is the effect. The moment you take responsibility for the state you occupy, you reclaim the power to shape your life. This is not about pretending or ignoring reality. It is about recognizing that reality itself is a moving picture projected from the film of your inner state. Change the film, and the picture must change. The law of assumption does not fail. It simply delivers the harvest of the seeds you have sown in consciousness. Sow deliberately, dwell persistently, and your dominant state will become the doorway through which your chosen reality enters. Imagination creates reality. To live in the end is to manifest desires. This is not a poetic phrase or an abstract ideal. It is a law of life. The world you experience is the visible expression of the unseen images you have accepted as true within yourself. Every scene you witness outwardly is first rehearsed in the theater of your mind, whether consciously or unconsciously. The imagination is the workshop of creation, and what you accept there will inevitably be staged on the screen of the outer world. To live in the end is to inhabit the feeling and awareness of your desire fulfilled until it becomes your natural dwelling place. When you live in the end, you are not merely daydreaming about a future possibility. You are entering into the state as though it were present reality. There is a profound difference between thinking of your desire and thinking from it. To think of it is to keep it at a distance, to treat it as something separate from yourself. To think from it is to claim it now, to accept it as your own and let your thoughts and actions flow naturally from that acceptance. The outer world then becomes a mirror, reflecting back the inner stance you have assumed. Every desire carries within it the seed of its fulfillment. The moment you imagine it vividly and feel it to be real, you have planted that seed in the fertile soil of your subconscious. Just as a seed contains the blueprint of the plant it will become, your imagined scene contains the pattern of the reality it will outpicture. Your task is not to dig up the seed each day to check its progress, but to persist in the state as if the harvest were already here. This is what it means to live in the end. To assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and remain there, regardless of current circumstances. Circumstances are always in motion, rearranging themselves to conform to your dominant assumption. If you are living in the end, the outer world will move in ways you may not predict, but every movement will be toward the realization of your imagined state. This is why the work is internal. By maintaining the inner vision and feeling, you give the law its instructions, and it will unfailingly deliver according to those instructions. The moment you step out of the state, doubting or contradicting it, you are rewriting those instructions and altering the course of events. To live in the end is not to ignore the present. It is to see it through the lens of the fulfilled desire. You may walk through the same rooms, meet the same people, and face the same conditions, but your inner perception has shifted. You no longer relate to the world as the one who lacks. You relate as the one who already has. This shift changes everything. It alters your tone of voice, your posture, your choices, and these subtle changes begin to reorganize the outer world around you. The imagination is not bound by time. You can close your eyes and experience a scene that implies your wish fulfilled as if it were happening now. Feel the reality of it. Hear the sounds, sense the environment, touch the objects in your mind's hand. Let the scene be as vivid as possible, and most importantly, let it carry the emotion of fulfillment. That emotion is the life force that impresses the scene upon the subconscious. Without feeling, the image remains a shadow. With feeling, it becomes substance. Living in the end is an act of faith, but not faith in something external. It is faith in the creative power within you to produce in the outer what you have claimed in the inner. The outer world is not a cause to which you must react. It is an effect that you have set in motion. When you truly accept this, you stop struggling against appearances. You recognize them as temporary echoes of former states, already giving way to the new pattern you are now embodying. There is a quiet certainty that comes with living in the end. You no longer measure progress by what your senses report. You know that once a state is assumed and persisted in, the outcome is inevitable. The delay between inner assumption and outer manifestation is nothing more than the necessary unfolding of events. Just as the seed must germinate before breaking the surface, your imagined reality must take root in the unseen before it can be touched and experienced in the physical world. The imagination is the bridge between desire and fulfillment. By living in the end, you cross that bridge in consciousness before you ever set foot on it in the physical. Once crossed inwardly, the outer journey becomes a natural sequence of steps, each one leading you to what you have already accepted as yours. This is the way creation works, from the invisible to the visible, from the imagined to the experienced. To live in the end is to live as though the promise were already kept, and in doing so, you make it so. Belief is the mold from which all circumstances are cast. Life does not deliver to you what you think you deserve in theory. It delivers what you believe in the depths of your being. Belief is not simply an intellectual agreement. It is the inner knowing that something is true, regardless of outward evidence. It is the invisible pattern that shapes the visible. Every event, every encounter, every condition you experience has taken form within the mold of your belief. Alter the mold, and the form must change with it. You can think of belief as the silent architect of your reality. Just as a building cannot exist without first being drawn in blueprint form, your outer world cannot appear without first being designed in the structure of belief. If the blueprint is faulty, the building will be unstable. If the belief is limiting, the experience will be restricted. It is not the outer world that determines the belief. It is the belief that determines the outer world. This is why two people can stand in the same circumstances and interpret them in entirely different ways, each living in the reality cast by their own inner mold. Belief works in harmony with the law of assumption. For what you assume to be true becomes your belief, and what you believe becomes the pattern of your life. You may consciously desire one thing, yet if your underlying belief contradicts it, the belief will always win. The outer world cannot rise higher than the inner conviction that gives it shape. This is why it is essential to become aware of the beliefs you hold, for many are invisible to the surface mind, yet they govern the flow of your life as surely as the unseen roots sustain the tree. Belief is not formed by logic alone, it is formed by repeated acceptance. Each time you accept an idea as true and dwell upon it, you are pouring it into the mold. Eventually, it hardens into the subconscious as a conviction, and from that moment forward, it will continue to cast circumstances in its image until it is replaced by a new belief. This replacement is not achieved by force, but by deliberate assumption. You choose the new mold, the new state of being, and persist in it until it is felt as naturally as the old one once was. The outer world reflects belief with precision. If you believe that opportunities are scarce, you will not see the openings that present themselves. If you believe that you are favored and guided, the smallest events will seem to conspire for your good. The world is not withholding from you, it is mirroring you. The mirror cannot change its reflection until you change the image standing before it. That image is your belief, the set of ideas and feelings you have claimed as part of yourself. To change belief is to change identity. You cannot cling to the old self-image and expect a new reality to form around it. If you believe you are limited, you will think and act within the bounds of that limitation, reinforcing it with every choice. If you believe you are capable, worthy, and abundant, your actions will naturally align with that identity, and life will match it in kind. Belief sets the boundaries of your experience. It is the container into which life pours its substance. The process of reshaping belief begins in imagination. You create a new mold by envisioning yourself already in possession of the state desired. You think from this new identity, feel from it, speak from it, until it is no longer an effort but a natural expression. At first, the outer world may still reflect the old belief, just as a wheel continues to turn a moment after the driving force has shifted. But if you remain faithful to the new mold, the wheel must eventually slow and reverse, bringing into view the evidence of the new pattern. It is important to remember that belief is not concerned with appearances. It is concerned with truth as accepted within. Appearances are simply the shadow of past beliefs, not the cause of present ones. If you measure your belief by what is already visible, you will be trapped in an endless loop of repeating the old. True transformation comes when you decide what is true for you and hold to it, even when the senses insist otherwise. The belief will outpicture itself in time, and the outer will bend to match the inner mold. Every great change in life begins with the acceptance of a new belief. Once accepted, it silently organizes your thoughts, emotions, and actions to align with it. Circumstances rearrange, opportunities appear, people move into your path, all because the mold has changed. It is not chance. It is the inevitable result of the pattern you now carry within. Understand this, and you will see that the work is never to force the outer world to conform. It is to shape the inner mold with precision and let the outer world naturally follow its design. Conscious creation begins with mastering inner dialogue. The words you speak within yourself are not harmless whispers. They are the architects of your reality. Every inner conversation is a thread in the fabric of your life, weaving together the pattern that will soon appear in tangible form. Most people believe they are simply observing life and commenting on it in their minds, but in truth, they are setting the course of events with every mental statement they make. The inner dialogue is the command center from which your world is issued its instructions. Your mind is never silent. Even in moments of stillness, a stream of words flows beneath the surface. Judgments, opinions, predictions, fears, hopes, and imaginings. This constant conversation is more than idle thought. It is the shaping force of your state of being. When your inner dialogue is aligned with your desire, it becomes the fuel that powers its manifestation. When it contradicts your desire, it becomes the saboteur that delays or destroys it. What you repeatedly say to yourself is the truth your subconscious accepts, and the subconscious will faithfully outpicture it without questioning whether it is beneficial or harmful. To master your inner dialogue, you must first become aware of it. Listen to the tone of your self-talk. Does it echo confidence or doubt? Does it affirm abundance or reinforce lack? Does it speak as the person you wish to be or as the person you no longer want to be? This awareness is the first step, for you cannot change a conversation you do not hear. Many live in the grip of an unconscious dialogue that repeats old stories inherited from childhood, from society, from past failures. These stories become self-fulfilling prophecies because the mind assumes them to be the unchanging truth. Once you recognize the nature of your inner speech, you can begin to direct it deliberately. This is not a matter of force or suppression. It is the gentle but firm redirection of thought toward the state desired. When an inner statement arises that contradicts your aim, do not wrestle with it. Replace it. Speak within yourself as the one who already has what you seek. This shift is subtle but powerful, for it changes the position from which you think. You are no longer hoping for change. You are expressing the change as if it were already a fact. Inner dialogue carries more weight than spoken words because it is constant and intimate. The subconscious hears it as instruction, and the outer world obeys those instructions. If you speak of yourself inwardly with criticism, the world will echo back situations that confirm that view. If you speak inwardly with encouragement, love, and certainty, the world will align to reflect those qualities. This is not mere positive thinking. It is the conscious use of the creative word, the silent speech that shapes reality. Mastering inner dialogue requires persistence. At first, the old conversation will try to dominate because it has been practiced for years. But every time you choose the new words, the new tone, the new story, you weaken the hold of the old. Over time, the new dialogue becomes natural, automatic, and effortless. When this happens, your outer life will begin to change without strain, for the inner cause has shifted. You will notice opportunities appearing, relationships improving, obstacles dissolving, all as the natural outflow of a new internal conversation. The quality of your life can be measured by the quality of your inner dialogue. If you wish to know what you truly believe about yourself, listen to the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening. There is no use pretending outwardly if inwardly you are rehearsing failure, rejection, or lack. The outer world will always side with the voice you use most often within. This is why mastering inner dialogue is the foundation of conscious creation. Without it, the mind will drift into old states, recreating the same patterns, no matter how much effort you exert outwardly. Your inner dialogue must be consistent with the state you wish to embody. If you desire health, your inner speech must sound like the thoughts of a healthy person. If you desire wealth, your inner speech must reflect the ease, gratitude, and confidence of one who is already wealthy. This is how you align your being with your desire, not by wishing or waiting, but by thinking from the place of fulfillment until it becomes your default position. Every great transformation begins with a change in the way you speak to yourself. Change the conversation, and you change the state. Change the state, and you change the life. The discipline is simple, though not always easy. To speak within as the person you choose to be, and to hold to that speech until the world cannot help but agree with it. In mastering your inner dialogue, you master the key to deliberate creation, for it is the voice that writes the script your life must follow. Persist in assumption until it hardens into fact. This is the bridge every creator must cross, for the difference between fleeting wish and manifested reality lies entirely in persistence. The law responds not to momentary flashes of imagination, but to the steady, consistent dwelling in a chosen state until it becomes the only reality you know inwardly. The mind is a fertile field, but a seed planted today and dug up tomorrow to check its progress will never bear fruit. In the same way, an assumption abandoned at the first sign of contradiction will never have the chance to solidify into visible form. Persistence is not strain. It is not the anxious clutching at a desire, but the quiet and confident holding of it as already accomplished. To persist is to rest in the certainty that the inner act has already been completed, and that the outer must, by the law of its nature, conform to it in due time. Many make the mistake of measuring progress by what the senses report. If the desired result has not yet appeared, they begin to question, doubt, or reverse the inner state. In doing so, they break the continuity of their assumption, and the process must begin anew. The outer world moves in accordance with patterns impressed upon the subconscious, and these patterns are built by sustained focus. Every time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are reinforcing the pattern. Every time you waver and give attention to appearances that contradict it, you weaken the structure. Persistence is simply the choice to dwell in the state more often than not, until it becomes so natural that it requires no effort to maintain. At that point, manifestation is inevitable, because the state has taken root in your identity. The hardening of an assumption into fact is like the curing of clay in a kiln. While it remains soft, it can be reshaped by doubt, fear, or contradiction. But once it has been fired through persistence, it becomes fixed, unchangeable except by deliberate effort. This is why the early stages of assumption require vigilance. Old habits of thought will try to pull you back to the familiar state you once occupied. The senses will tempt you with the evidence of the old reality. But if you hold to the new state, not fighting the old, but calmly ignoring it, the mold will solidify, and the outer will have no choice but to match it. Time is not the enemy in this process. The period between assumption and fact is not a void, but a season of gestation. Just as a seed must develop unseen, before breaking through the soil, your assumption is taking form in ways you may not yet perceive. Impatience is the sign that you have stepped out of the state and are looking for proof instead of knowing. True persistence is marked by inner peace, the certainty that the reality is yours, even if the world has not yet caught up to it. To persist is to live as though the assumption were already a fact, not only in imagination but in thought, feeling, and action. This does not mean forcing the outer to change. It means letting your behavior and attitude flow naturally from the conviction that it has already changed. If you have assumed abundance, you will think, feel, and act with the ease of one who is abundant. If you have assumed health, you will carry yourself with the vitality and confidence of one who is whole. This alignment between inner and outer self strengthens the assumption, hastening its solidification into fact. Every moment you persist, you are training the subconscious to accept the assumption as reality. The subconscious does not resist. It simply follows the repeated command. The only question is whether you are repeating the command of your desire or the command of your fear. To persist is to keep giving the desired command until no other possibility exists in your inner world. At that point, the law has no choice but to produce the corresponding fact in your outer world. The great secret is that persistence is not about holding on tightly, but about letting go of the question of when and how. You persist by living in the end, by enjoying the state now, by refusing to be moved by the lack of visible evidence. In this way, the assumption ceases to be an effort and becomes simply who you are. When it reaches that level, when the assumption is no longer something you visit, but the home you live in, it has already hardened into fact, and the physical world is merely catching up to the truth you have already established within. Everything in your life is the outpicturing of your inner state, What you focus on, you attract. The law of assumption moves unerringly through the climate of your dominant state, bringing forth in form what you have already accepted in feeling. Imagination is the workshop where every creation begins, and to live in the end is to claim your desire before the senses confirm it. Belief is the silent mode shaping all circumstances, and the quality of your life can never rise above the convictions you hold about yourself and the world. The inner dialogue is the ceaseless voice writing the script of your days, and to master it is to master the course of your life. And when you persist in assumption until it hardens into fact, you prove to yourself that reality is not an external force acting upon you, but an obedient servant carrying out the instructions you have impressed upon it. There is no one to change but self, no condition to battle, no outer power to convince. The work is wholly within, to choose, to assume, to believe, to speak inwardly as the one who already has, and to persist until the invisible becomes visible. This is not theory but law, and the one who applies it faithfully will find that nothing is impossible, for the world is only a reflection of the self that is imagining it.